And welcome to the Global Star Party. It is the 20th of February in Australia, and we are broadcasting live from Byron Bay and New Zealand, where Paul is also on board. I'm going to flick over to Paul real quick before the clouds destroy our live views, and I think everybody knows what we're looking at, but you take it away, Paul.
Yes. This is the Orion Nebula in Orion, amazingly. And we're just doing a quick images tonight, just using my Lodestar guide cam with a focal reducer on it to speed things up a bit.
Excellent. So the guide cam is a kind of low resolution but nice and sensitive and quick monochrome camera. And this is versus the full moon as well. So yeah, it's obviously a nice bright nebula for imaging even against the full moon. Obviously you get more detail in the fainter areas if we didn't have a full moon, but sometimes these shows just end up being on those full moon nights, and you have the choice of looking at the moon or just these big bright charismatic objects like the Orion Nebula. We don't have much other in the way of live views, so I'll just give a quick summary of what's going on in the Southern Hemisphere in the skies right now around February. For anyone else who is an astronomer and who is doing their own imaging down here or just curious from the Northern Hemisphere, the Orion region, which we were just looking at, is setting really in the west as everything sets, and so you'll see it in the early evening, so you've still got a chance to image and get a few hours in before it disappears in the muck there. But that whole Orion region, which is the Horsehead and M42 and Allentak and the Flame Nebula and all those big beautiful ones are setting in the early evening. Rising, we have the Puppis, Vela, Carina kind of region, which is very kind of sparse and wide emission nebulas. Of course, Carina is massive in there as well, but there is a lot of wide field stuff in there. The Large Magellanic Cloud is sort of circumpolar. It rotates around the pole, but you'll still get that in the evening and early evening. And at the moment, about midnight or 1 o'clock, Jupiter is really quite high. So it's straight up at the zenith and looking quite good. So you probably may have noticed that there are lots of Jupiter shots going around at the moment, and that's why it's just in a really good position, starting to get closer to midnight rather than the early hours of the morning up at the zenith there. So looking pretty good. If you are interested in just being up to date with these sort of updates all the time and well in advance, I thoroughly recommend this publication, Astronomy. It's just called Astronomy. It comes out every year, Astronomy Australia, and it is done by Ken Wallace, Glenn Dawes and Peter Northfield, and every year they just give you a really really good summary of what's going on. There's a highlight section which will just tell you exactly what the highlights are for the month, for every month of the year, so you know well in advance what the what's going on. And yeah, for February we have Jupiter near opposition, the Alpha Centauri's meteor shower, and the planetary conjunction earlier on, and Mercury for morning viewing. If you're up for getting up that early, I certainly am not. Usually I'm very lazy. Now, I'll just flick back over to Paul, and I'm guessing this is the flame. Is that right, Paul?
It's trying to be the flame. The fires aren't burning very bright tonight.
Well, especially against that big attention-seeking Alnitak, the bane of that whole region, really. And that actually leads me into one of the images from the FlickR group this month. So I'll just see if I share that. We haven't, I say this month, but it's actually been months and months because we haven't shared this since before Christmas. So I'm just going to flick over to this image from Paul Draubey, and you can see the Flame Nebula there, and the obvious challenge with this region is just how bright Alnitak is. So it's really, really hard to deal with, and some telescopes deal with it better than others, and some, processing methodologies as well. This is a really great shot. If you're a beginner or intermediate or experienced, you'd just be happy with a shot like this. So really well done, Paul. He tells us it's 26 10-minute frames, and 10 minutes is a good amount of time for this region. There's a lot of wispy HA data in there as well. But this looks like it was just an RGB Canon Rebel T3i paired to an 8-inch Newtonian telescope. Yeah, so thanks for that. And while Paul's slewing around, I might as well choose something else from the FlickR group while we're here. Let's see what we got. Just give me a moment. Sort of have to flick back. Here we go. Here's one from Thad Zapo, friend of the show, and esteemed lecturer, as well as amateur astronomer as well, or professional astronomer really, but this is just done with his consumer level equipment, Celestron Edge HD 9.25, F10 with an ADIC 314L color CCD, which is a great little setup for quick stuff. Although F10 is quite slow, but you can see this Eskimo Nebula, which is one I'm completely unfamiliar with, but it looks like a planetary nebula, I'm guessing, just because of just how small and round it is, which is really all you need for identifying planetary nebulas. They show up in some of my shots in tiny little corners, really hard to image well, and you can see there's several layers to this, so that's done quite well. And I'm sure if he was here, he'd be able to wax lyrical about this target in a way that I certainly cannot. Okay, so I'm just going to flick back over to Paul, who's bringing us all the live views tonight. And here is, what's this? What is it, Paul? I'm not sure I'm familiar with this one.
Some horrible bright thing that's destroying the sky.
Yeah, light pollution. Jeez. It's I haven't been keeping up. Whenever the moon is around, I kind of just forget about imaging for a little while unless I've got some serious narrowband to do. But are we going into a full moon or out of a full moon?
It's just starting to be waxing there, about 95%.
Yeah. Cool. And that's off in the northwest for me at the minute. Oh no, sorry, it's off in the north. Do you have clouds right now, or is this just a fairly unimpeded view?
It looks a bit hazy, so there must be a bit of cloud up there somewhere.
Yeah, the high atmosphere stuff. Yeah, I mean, there's not much to say about the moon that hasn't already been said. I'm not great with my lunar atlas type stuff. There are a few key features that are obvious winners. Tycho there. Tycho's down the bottom. Sorry, just down the frame. But yeah, pretty good for a. Is this just still your guide cam, or is this the grasshopper? This is the grasshopper.
Yeah, it's back to the grasshopper.
Yep. The grasshopper is the same 174 Sony chip that I've started using. Is that right?
No, well, it comes with different chips in it. One of the varieties has that chip in it. This one doesn't.
Okay.
It's a proper CMOS sensor.
Yep. Excellent. It's a very impressive camera, and it's really served you well for a long time as well, hasn't it?
Yes, and not very cheap either.
Mm. How much, if you don't mind me asking, how much was it when you first bought it?
I think it was about $2,000 for that one.
Yeah. It's a decent whack for a camera. You should definitely, if you're getting into astrophotography, spend that kind of money on or more on the mount, and spend at least that much again on the camera. The optics is great, and it's good to have big optics, but there's such a variety of targets at different sizes that you'll be well served by putting more money into the mount and the camera before you start investing in massive optics. That's really nice. I'm going to mix things up and go back to the neglected FlickR group. I don't have time to go over the 1,000 or more images that are there now. So I'll just share these few that I've picked out. This one's from Sarah Waga. And if you haven't seen Sarah's work, it is absolutely formidable. It's definitely what I would consider in the more advanced category. And Sarah explains in this image that she called it an artistic impression because it's actually just HA data, which is funny. HA data, for those who don't know, is just black and white when you process it. It's monochrome. So I imagine she's painted on. That's where the artistic license comes from. But it's a really nice interpretation. You wouldn't really know it if she hadn't said so. But if you look through some of her other stuff, and there's a lot of her other stuff in the FlickR group as well, it's worth checking out the rest of her work because it is incredible. She's got close-up shots of this region, and they're just stunning. They're just those high, really advanced level astrophotography, deep sky astrophotography. She's using all her own data. It's just really, really impressive. So thanks very much, Sarah, for submitting that. And I'm just going to flip back over to Paul. I'm going to assume this is Jupiter.
It is. We've only got a small scope on tonight, so we're not going to get any details and banding and stuff, but
okay. There
are a few moons.
Yep, you can see them. There was a little discussion recently that I saw popping up. I can't remember if it was in my, it might have been in my Google Plus, that was talking about how Stellarium doesn't predict or doesn't show the correct positions of the moon, which is interesting because Stellarium is such well-regarded free software. I'll just quickly see if I can work out what the moons are, unless you have a quicker method.
Yeah, from the left, hopefully it's left on everyone's screens. It's Callisto, Europa, Ganymede, Jupiter, and Io.
Yeah. That is what I'm seeing on my app. Io is the one hanging off by itself on the right. Yeah, it's a nice little grouping there. Now Jupiter doesn't take long to do a full rotation. I think it's 8 or 9 hours. Do you know, Paul?
It's something like that.
Yeah, and the moons move pretty quickly as well. In about 5 hours, you'll see them move significantly. Where Ganymede is, I'm not sure if it's behind or crossing, but it's they move pretty quickly. So if you are imaging Jupiter and you get a really good, clear clear night and it's up in the sky for the entire 8 hours, you can pretty much image a full rotation. It's obviously very hard to do because of the time of year and whether you're going to get those sorts of conditions, but it is possible. And Trevor's just joined us. G'day, Trev.
Howdy, guys.
What's going on where you are?
Mate, clouds if you want them.
I think I've got the same ones. Actually, it was pretty clear when I checked before, but someone actually asked me just earlier, maybe yesterday, where I've been and what I've been doing, because I haven't been posting very many pictures. So I'll quickly share with the Hangout what I've been doing.
I think it's been quiet. I think it's been quiet for a few people, mate.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
That's what I've been doing. I've got rid of plants. I've got rid of a tree, and I'm building a slab in my backyard in preparation for sticking a observatory on there. Very modest. It'll be a modest one, but I'll be permanently set up, so I'll be permanently aligned, and hopefully that means my productivity will go up. Yeah. But I don't know if you guys have ever done a slab before. It's bloody back-breaking work, digging and doing form work and
Yep, it is,
gravel.
mate.
Oh my god!
Getting it level and yep.
Yeah,
Oh, mate, at least you got some of the Rio down already.
Yeah. I'll have the Rio finished off tomorrow, and it'll be ready to pour. So I've got to try and find a wholesale concrete place as well, because if you just go to a concreter, the price doubles. And as far as I'm concerned, I've done all the work now. I just need it poured and just get a screed over it.
What you should do, mate, if you know where your dome is going to go or your observatory, you might probably want to put some conduit down so you can feed some power out there.
Ah, true. Yeah. That's definitely a good idea. And Paul also suggested isolating a square. I don't know if you can see that, isolating a square about there where you can stick a pier if you decide to do it later on down the track. So,
exactly.
So that'd be good too, but I just don't have the time.
Exactly right. I mean, you don't need too much of a gap around the rest of the concrete, as long as there's enough so you're eliminating the vibration.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. So that's where I've been.
Mate, it's just you're gonna be like the Greeks and the Italians, mate. I come and concreted.
I am not used to this kind of back-breaking labour. I am a computer nerd with soft computer keyboard fingers. I don't do digging and.
After this, you won't be, mate.
No, I'm pretty proud of myself because I can knock up a shelf, but this is the most handy thing I've ever done. Otherwise.
Mate, you know what? It brings out all the muscle pain you don't use.
That's right. I'm going to flick over to Paul, who's bringing us a globular cluster. What are we looking at, Paul?
The granddaddy of all globular clusters.
Ah, nice.
Yeah, 47.
Amiga Centauri.
Yep.
I thought you were looking at 47 then. Let me down.
The granddaddy. But, I don't know if you guys have any light to shed on this, but I was thinking, because I don't really understand how globular clusters work. I don't really get why they are in such a uniform position compared to a galaxy. A galaxy seems to be essentially the same thing, except perhaps with a black hole in the middle of it, which would then cause the stars to spiral and rotate and gravitate around them. I don't really get how these form or even occur in this sort of pattern, and I have a feeling that it's not well understood in general astronomy anyway. I do know that most of the stars, if this was in colour, we would see that they were orangey red, suggesting that they don't consist of fresh blue young stars. So they are old, like a galaxy would be old. I just don't get why they're in just perfectly circular formation. Any of you guys got anything to to enlighten me with?
Mate, without researching on it, good guess. I think you did all right.
Yeah, Yeah, I'm sure there are galaxies without black holes though, and they're not perfectly circular. They come in all sorts of different shapes and sizes, or at least they're black holes that we haven't detected, maybe, or but there are definitely galaxies without black holes that we know of. But yeah, it just seems weird that there's a big patch where they all seem to be intertwined, and they all kind of seem to be exploding out in a kind of equidistant way.
Well, as you know, mate, there's more than one of them out there, so...
Weird. What is the difference between a galaxy and a globular cluster? If anyone knows, probably That'd know. Please let us know. We'll tell someone on the next show.
Yeah, we need an astrophysicist on board.
Astrophysicist. Yeah.
Physicist.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was looking nice and clear tonight, but then the clouds come over, and I thought, well, it's going to be no point anyway with that moon out there right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know what you mean. That moon, that bloody moon. Now, let me see if I can share something else from the FlickR group. Well, I'm slowly getting through the key images that I wanted to pick out. Cool, and Paul's got... I'm going to get back to you, Paul. I'll be there in a sec. Just hang on. Okay. Now, this isn't a terribly dramatic astrophoto, but it is a good example of the kind of astrophotography you can do, even if you are in urban America, or I assume this is urban America. I probably shouldn't assume, but it does seem really, really bright with a long exposure. The image is perhaps a little bit over sharpened, but otherwise you can see the constellations, and you can see Orion, the Orion region, quite distinctively. So there is still stuff to see. Of course, you can still do the planets, you can still do the moon, you can still do the sun, even if you're living in the middle of the city, and you can still do narrowband. So if you are still interested in nebulas, it doesn't matter, even if you have this much light flooding onto your observatory, you can still do those insanely good narrowband images, even the ones that I was showing you that Sarah was doing before. It's definitely possible.
I'm not used to seeing that upside down.
Yeah. I never sort of got constellations or the sort of draw to them in general. I understand how they're a good kind of shortcut if you just want to tell someone to go to a region or look in a region or star hop from somewhere. But I've never sort of been drawn to just like doing figures in the sky and whatever. I suppose it had more utility before we had camera phones and smartphones that could tell us where everything was at the push of a button.
It's still good to know your star formation, so you know where you are. You don't get lost. I mean, mate, when you were in Western Australia, you would have been out in the middle of nowhere, and first time you look at the sky like that, you get lost. You got to figure out where you are.
But I also had my phone. I had reception. I call me lazy. I'm just one of those new. I'm not Generation Y. I'm still Generation X, but I'm one of those lazy, technology-obsessed astronomers. I'm going to quickly share something from the FlickR group again. Give me a second to pull it up here. Now, this is a fantastic few shots from Paul Swift of Moonrocks Astro. We've featured his work on the show before, and you'll see it around because it's just amazing, and it gets shared all over the place. Paul does these really insane mosaics of narrowband primarily, and he really pulls out that contrast and that structure in the HA data he gets. This is showing the intersection between the Horsehead and the Flame Nebula that we were looking at live just before, and he's called it the spacewalk because it is like this massive corridor that connects M42 and the Running Man. And we often think of all these things as distinct targets, or at least groups of targets with these two. But to see them all like this, all connected in this neighborhood of interstellar dust and gas is just fantastic. And I'll just throw up the other side of that. I think I've got that here.
Yeah, he's got to be really happy with that. When I seen that, I thought that's amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
A hell of a lot of work too, mate.
Yeah, but he seems to pump them out. I don't know what his setup is, but he'll have one shot, and then in a couple of days he'll have another one, and it's just unbelievable. This is definitely a different kind of color treatment than we'd be used to, but I really like it. It just looks golden and glowing and really, really nice. So I can't begrudge him the color treatment on this. It's fantastic. You still see the difference between the red and the blue regions, which I think is really important when you're looking at deep space photos to be able to tell the old and new stars apart.
I think he's chosen that. I think he's gone with that color to bring out more of the dust lanes and the background.
Yeah, he seems to be really good at that. Just processing that dust. You can see the streaks running up out of the horse head, which are really beautiful. Just great. He's a really, really great astrophotographer. Definitely go check out his stuff if you haven't. Now I'm going to flick back to Paul, who's bringing us live after live here. And we are looking at Centaurus A, yeah, Paul?
We were, but it looks like there's a cloud in the road now.
Wow, okay.
Mate, did you get the what was it, the supernova that went off in there?
Supernova, yeah, that's right. It was fairly big news recently. Now supernovas are found fairly regularly. They're hard. You can't just find them. You've got to do massive sky surveys. And the guys in Queensland, the Boss Group, which is a backyard, I forget what it stands for, Backyard Observers Supernova Survey or something like that. Yeah. And they're just 3 or 4 guys, I think maybe 5 guys, who take a bunch of photos between Australia and New Zealand and blink them, which is essentially subtracting one from the other or blinking them so you can see if anything's changed between their control set, which is just the galaxies without supernova, and then the images they have from the night. Now I'm going to share with you an image that I took of Centaurus A one night after the announcement that it had been confirmed.
I've got my friend to do the same thing down in South Wales. He actually got a good one.
So this is good, but I can't take credit for this. I used eye telescope because I had clouds and I just wanted to get it before it happened. So I think the shot cost me about maybe 15, 20 bucks. But this is one frame as well. So this is a telescope with a 0.7 meter aperture. So it's massive, absolutely massive, massive plane wave. And zoom in there, and you can just see the stunning detail that you get. I can't believe this is one sub. And you can imagine what it would be like if you stacked them all together, stacked a bunch of them.
If it's on a 20-inch plane wave, mate, they've got some really good gear.
Yeah, it really is. Now, when they blinked the supernova, it's actually this one here. You can see where my mouse pointer is. And if you didn't know what you were looking for, that would have just looked like the bright star right here. But it's not. It's actually separate. And if I zoom in here, you can see that it is separate. Now, the gear he was using wasn't a 20-inch plane wave. It was a backyard scope. So it really did just look like a bump off this main star. But it was there, and they confirmed it. And at the time that I took this, it might have been 4 days old. Now, what's exciting about this particular, sorry, I'll let this stabilize for you guys. What's particularly interesting for them and the community and the research community is that Centaurus A is quite a close galaxy. So it's one where if we can see a supernova starting and we can record the whole process and the spectra, everything is going to be fairly well detailed. I know, or at least I've heard that Hubble has identified the progenitor, which is the original star. So going back through Hubble data, they were able to see the small star that you wouldn't even see in a backyard telescope, and now that star is dead. It has exploded, and it's now I'm just leaving its supernova explosion. It will probably turn into, I don't know, maybe a planetary nebula. I'm not sure. But it's really amazing to see this stuff actually happen, and it's amazing for the amateur astronomy community too to see that this sort of stuff happens from the backyard. These guys are using consumer level equipment. They are very dedicated, but between blinking the frames and reconfirming the data, it only took them a few days to get out on the Astronomer Telegram and let the research guys know, who then got very, very excited about it. I think one of the guys who discovered it, Greg Bock, was telling me that they discovered it about 1 a.m. or they thought, they suspected it was there about 1 a.m. and by 9 a.m. that morning they'd had 200 emails between them and the rest of the research community. So really, really exciting stuff, and congratulations to those guys. And it looks like Paul has something else for us. I'm gonna guess this is the homunculus.
Yes, part of the Carina Nebula.
Very, very nice. Now, I always get confused about this because Eta Carina is the star itself. I think it's a star system. I think it might be 2 stars, I'm not sure. The designation's also weird because it's not a typical star designation, but it's just stuck over the years. And I don't think we can see in a smaller home telescope, but the star itself is like in a bubble, which is the homunculus. So yes, I got it wrong. Homunculus is what's going around the star, and this big bulbous thing that you see in the middle is actually called the Keyhole Nebula, which is part of the greater Carina Nebula, which is massive. But homunculus is in there, but it's in that bright. I believe it's in that bright star, and you need something like the Hubble or a very large ground-based telescope to resolve that. But I'm not sure. I haven't targeted it. But yeah, you can even see this is against the full moon, and we were looking at Orion before, and this is just a fraction of the Carina Nebula. So this is as big as Orion, and this is just a fraction of the whole one. It's definitely one of my favorites. It's so easy to image. It's really really great. You can just run off really quick subs and get a fantastic result. There's big dark dust lanes and things like that.
Yeah. So is that done in HA, is it?
No, it's just straight off my guide cam.
Okay.
Paul is really outdoing himself just with a guide cam tonight, but his observatory is going from target to target to target on a show that I thought wouldn't have any live views at all, because we had the news that it was cloudy before, and it seems to have cleared up about 2 minutes before the broadcast. So thank you again, Paul, for coming and bringing your ninja astronomy skills.
Good. Dylan, I just wonder if I can show you the image of Centaurus A with the
yes.
with that my mate took down in New South Wales.
Okay.
I don't know if you can.
Yeah, I can see the red.
You can see that little red dot. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That was done on a 12.5 inch, and he was running it for some time, just trying to actually get some more detail out of it.
Yeah, you can see there. It's definitely not a bump. It's a distinct star explosion there. Stars are much smaller, but it's just the explosion.
I basically let him know the same time, like as you found out, and the next day he was onto it. So
yeah, cool. So that would have been about day 4 as well.
Yeah, and he's got I think he's from Mudgee actually.
Okay. Oh, that's fantastic.
There you go. I thought it was impressive because I never had a chance to get it, but
yeah. I didn't have a chance. It is up for a while though, I think. These things can last weeks or even up to a month. And I'll just check how long Centaurus A is going to be up for in the Southern Hemisphere.
I'm not down in Melbourne, mate. All my big scopes are down there. I'd love to throw me 16-inch on it.
Yeah. Yeah, Centaurus A is rising in the southeast, and by midnight it's It's still an early morning target, but you can still image it, by about 10 or 11. So
It's very low. It's very low, isn't it? I think it's low too.
lowish on the south, yeah, southeast end. But it still can be imaged in the early or evening, really, and definitely towards the early morning. Now, since we were talking about Carina, I'm just going to quickly share out one of mine. I think it's been a while since I shared one of mine, so there you go. This is a bicolor Carina of the same keyhole nebula region we were just looking at before, those big dark dust lanes. I think it was about 23-minute frame stacked or something like that, about an hour's worth of data. I went with the bicolor process just because my third channel just didn't come out as well as the HA and the it was HA and sulfur. I threw away the oxygen. Or maybe was it? No, I think I used the oxygen and threw away the sulfur. Yeah, that's it.
So you got a lot of sulfur look through that.
Yeah, and it's really actually quite powerful what you can do with bicolor. And I think I've got another one that I can show you. Let me see. Actually, yes, I'll show you one more while I'm here, and then I'll stop my shameless self-promotion. This is the Rosette Nebula in Hubble Space Telescope palette with a little bit of push on the sulfur, but I've done this as a artistic 3D. So I've used a luminance map to create a 3D model. If you're one of those people who can cross your eyes so that you can focus on the image in the middle, and you can. There are other versions of this where it's animated, so you can see it. But it is definitely much better if you can cross your eyes, and you've got to sit away from the monitor because it is quite a large image, and turn it into a 3D stereo image in the middle. You'll see it it looks like you're looking down the top of a volcano. And if you're interested in how that's done, the process was created by JP Metsaviano, or at least shared and pioneered by him. And I put a description about how it's done in a live video demonstration on the Astro Imaging Channel's Hangout from last week, which was really good. And I'll get to writing this up as well. So I'll write this up and I'll put the instructions on photographingspace.com. So hopefully that'll be good too. Now we'll just flip back over to the live view. So Paul is showing us the Tarantula Nebula. Am I right again?
You are. How do you know all these?
Because they're big bright targets on a full moon night. The Tarantula is renowned for looking spooky, and if we were seeing it in on an RGB image, we'd see it looking very greenish. And I'm not sure I understand this completely, but I think it's because this is a big nebula, like a massive nebula, but it's in another galaxy, so it's not in our Milky Way galaxy like the ones we've been looking at tonight. And because it's so far away, the redshift is so dramatic that we don't see, at least on an RGB camera, we don't see the hydrogen emission in straight red. It's sort of shifted to this greeny, or maybe even bluey, but it definitely just has this green tinge to it, which doesn't come from space because you don't have green stars. They just don't happen. There's no chemical possibility for that to happen. So yeah, very interesting one, the Tarantula Nebula, and I at least find it extremely difficult to image. It's definitely been one I've struggled with for a while. I don't know why that is. It's probably just because of my mount and the southern kind of alignment of it. But it is a beautiful object. And Paul is just going crazy tonight. I'm going to flick over to the FlickR group again, so we're getting a nice little mix between the live views and the submitted images from our viewers. And this one's from Paul M. Hutchinson, who's quite active on Google+. I do follow him, and he does some great work. He does have a lot of obscure targets as well, and this Needle Galaxy is no exception to that rule. he does tend to put a lot of information. You can see there, every image he posts, he has a technical card where he goes through everything he used to take that image. So there's never any doubt if you're interested in seeing the different kinds of effects you can get from cameras and optical setups. That's a good. Paul really puts the effort into those technical cards. So thanks for submitting that image, Paul.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. What else have I got here? I have another one from the FlickR group, which is not terribly astronomical. Well, it sort of is. It's still sunlight, so it comes from a star. But these are called nacreous clouds. I hadn't actually heard of that term before, and I think they may be called something else as well. But sorry, Trev?
No, I can't recall hearing that when I was at school either.
No, nacreous clouds I've never heard of. And I'm sure I just can't remember what else I've heard this called. But that you can see that rainbow effect that's coming through, which is where the light is diffracted. I believe this is how it works, unless nacreous clouds is something completely different. But I believe it's the high ice crystals in the atmosphere, at least within these clouds, that is causing the light to refract and to split off into its different wavelengths. Yeah. So that's kind of interesting, and it's nice to see. Astrophotography is not just deep space photos, but essentially every sunset is an astro photo.
Oh, I guess so. Mate, are you interested in seeing what some of my club members have been doing?
Yeah, sure. If you've got anything to share, we've got a bit of time left. That's fine.
This is tarantula done in HAN03. I'll just share the screen. I can get to it. I've got to get to it first.
Mm-hmm.
Let me get to it, mate. Hang on a second.
No trouble.
Yeah, it's all about sharing the right screen here, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right. I don't know if you got it now, have you? No?
Not yet.
No. It's been a bugger. All right, I got it. I've got it. We are ready to rock and roll. Okay.
What are we looking at here, Paul?
This will be the Southern Pinwheel Galaxy.
Ah, nice. Yeah, I'm not a galaxy guy, so I maybe I'll get into it one year and just go hell for the leather on galaxies. But that's quite big, isn't it?
It's quite big and bright, that one. It's quite a good target to mooch.
Southern Pinwheel. Is that? I'm just wondering, is that good? Is that a good target right now, this time of year?
It's just rising in the east now, so it shouldn't be too bad.
Oh yeah. Then it will get better and better over the next few months, which is good. So yeah, if you're like me and you don't do galaxies a lot, that might be a good one to try from the Southern Hemisphere.
That wasn't too bad. It wasn't a very long exposure.
Yeah. Now I'm trying to share you, Trev, but I'm not sure I'm getting you.
Yes, no?
Oh, there we go. Yep. Andy Campbell.
Andy Campbell. He's done that in 2014, but I just want to show you the Tarantula Nebula in HAN03.
Oh, very nice. Yeah.
Now he did this in Melbourne, of course, and this was done around about 15 minutes out of the CBD.
Yep.
So
that's what I mean about narrowband. If you are in the city and you are interested in nebula photography, just narrowband is the way to go. It really is. And even if you are at a dark sky site, narrowband is still the way to go because you can still collect a lot of amazing data to mix in with your RGB data as well.
That's right.
Yeah, that's really nice, Trev. And Paul looks like he's honing in on something here. Bit of a twinkle. What are you doing, Paul?
He's just teasing us, mate.
Yeah, it's just trying to find a target.
Okay, no worries. Well, look, it's been a pretty good hour already, or 45 minutes, and we've been through the features on the FlickR group, and we've done a lot of live as well. So I think I'm going to wrap it up. I think that's been a pretty good show, actually, considering I didn't think it was going to be anyone but just Paul and I going through the FlickR group 2 minutes before this started, and it turned out okay, which is good. Let us know in the comments if you want us to run a Southern Hemisphere one every week. We seem to have more astronomers from the Southern Hemisphere, and so it just makes it easy for us to get live views during the Southern Hemisphere shows from week to week. But we still are keen on the Northern show, and I know Stephen Rahn and Daniel Herron have been doing a great job on that one. So we're still going to flick, but if you do want an extra Southern Hemisphere show, please let us know. Looks like we've had a bunch of viewers this show as well, so thank you for tuning in. We're going to love and leave you with this photo from Paul of, what are we looking at, Paul?
That is not a very good looking Mars.
Oh, right, excellent. This is a planet that's coming into view, or is in view at the evening right now, so expect a lot of Mars photos in the coming months as well. And obviously a different kind of setup required for Mars, but we'll leave you with that lovely view of Mars. So thank you everyone for joining in, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Catch you later.